Paws and Souls from Arkuda and Electrostalin Entertainment. Thank you for the key that you've provided me. This is going to be a bit of a weird one for me.
I feel very strange.
Consider this a review, but I'm not going to show you the whole game or that sort of thing, because, you know, this is really the kind of game you need to play, because if I just start showing you a bunch of things, it's going to really kind of spoil things, and you don't really want all this stuff out of order. Let's just kind of start with what the game is first. It's a bit of a 3D action platformer on rails with a heavy linear story that you can sometimes affect things. I don't know, that's kind of a weird way to describe it, but I think it's pretty accurate. It's basically an on-rails shooter.
I wonder why I can see these two so well.
Interspersed with scenes like this, where you can see folks. And as you see them, you get a little bit of the story. And as you progress through the game, you're going to have many of these different scenes, as well as some points where you can interact more directly with the game. And as you can see right now, it's a beautiful game. Low poly, very stylized, saturated colors, interesting looking world. Even the wolf, like I said, low poly, but it looks good. It's really quite a beautiful game. And that's in part what makes this a little frustrating to say or to do, because
I could influence this world. What happens if we collect more?
it's just odd. So you're supposed to be collecting these energy orbs that are just lying in various places on the map. And the thing that's, well, one of the things that's kind of frustrating about this is the game doesn't really give you a whole lot of reason to go exploring. Now, in this very first part of the game, yeah, you will end up doing a little bit of exploring because you need to go to each of these caves to find an orb floating in it. And watch the wolf. Watch the wolf. Watch the wolf.
A sphere. Maybe I need to bring it somewhere. I think I'll find out what to do with it.
Yeah, see, there you go. He tells you. He thinks he'll find out what to do with it. Now, man, it just, this is so hard to really describe this game and to get into details about all the different things, because it's a game that clearly was made with a lot of love, a lot of passion, a lot of energy, a lot of focus, but it suffers for certain things, namely that I think, and I'm trying to be charitable here and not be mean or rude or unkind, I think the writing primarily was done by someone who's a non-native English speaker. So if you're reading and playing in English, it's a little rough. The dialogue, the writing, it suffers. It's not terrible, mind you. It's passable, it's fine. But it's definitely a little rough. The other thing, too, is, I mean, you're listening to the music right now. It's pretty good. I like it. Problem is, there's like 3 or 4 songs in the entire game, and that's all you get. And they repeat, or play rather, at seemingly random intervals, and so you'll get these scenes. Oh, it's not funny, but it's funny. You'll get these scenes where something is happening, something really serious, maybe something sad or sorrowful, and this music that you're hearing right now will fire up. And you're like, wait, what? That doesn't fit with what's going on. And it really doesn't. It's hilarious. And it's probably not supposed to be like that, but that's the reality of it. Hey, can I not get you while I have these? I thought so. Don't be like that. So anyway, you're supposed to be collecting all these orbs and basically sticking to the path, and as you go along through the game collecting all these orbs, you will have moments where you can use them. And I'll see if I can maybe skip ahead a little bit to show you one of those. And we'll rejoin on the other side of this, because I have a few more things to say, but honestly, I'm trying to keep this short because I don't want to spoil a lot of the game, and it really kind of is one that you need to play, but I also want to be sure that I let you know what you're getting yourself into with it. If I've timed this right, this is going to make perfect sense and it's going to flow smoothly. One of the interesting things in this game is that you sometimes have instances here where you have these butterflies, that's a butterfly, believe it or not, where these large, really colorful butterflies will be flying around, and when you, oh man, I'm an idiot. When you jump into them, they give you some sort of ability which will last for about 30 seconds or so, and generally speaking is going to be critical to getting through whatever part of the game you're currently in. So like this one is about to expire, and I'm gonna maybe make the jump anyway and it'll be fine. Okay, good, that worked out okay. Anyway, yes, I know, hold F and Q and all that sort of stuff. So this is going to be one of the very first instances in which you can affect the game. These are, there's a good, I don't know, several of them.
What are you so upset about? Oh, do you want to go to the park and get some ice cream? Or we could go buy you some new toys.
I wanted to go to the park with Mama and Papa, but they left me again.
So, that's the thing. Oh, ma chérie, are you upset about your parents?
We promised we'd go to the park together.
Oh, chérie, I understand you. I would be very upset if my parents were constantly away on business and wouldn't have time for me.
So, they don't love me anymore?
Nonsense. Of course they love you very much. I know it for sure. Michel, your parents don't always get to show their feelings for you. There's nothing we can do about it now. But what we can do is eat some ice cream and have fun together. On the other hand, when your parents come back, why don't you tell them you'd like to spend more time with them? Maybe they just don't understand how important this is to you.
But they're too busy. They don't care about me.
Ma chérie, they're your parents. They will always have time for you. Otherwise, I will give them a long lecture.
So that's the first introduction to Michelle. So if we jump onto this altar, we can hold down F and spend some of those spirit orbs.
Different from the other ones. It looks like a girl. Maybe I should follow her.
And we can now help her with her story. So this is where we're going to kind of deviate from just playing the game, and I'll probably start interspersing some other footage because I have, pretty much all of it. And I'm just going to hit on a couple of things that are a little, well, I'm going to hit on the pros and cons quickly.
I think it's the wrong way.
That's one of the cons right there. Although the pro,
It's definitely the wrong way.
this is the funny part, the pro to this,
It's definitely the wrong way.
I'm trying to be quiet when he's speaking
I think this is the wrong way.
because I want you to hear
It's definitely the wrong way.
that they've recorded 4 or so different lines for him to tell you that you're going the wrong way.
I think it's the wrong way.
I mean, on the one hand, that's hilarious. On the other, there are more invisible walls than in a Bethesda game. It's kind of annoying. Eventually, you will wander around and figure out where you're supposed to go. If you're like me, you have trouble figuring that out sometimes. And you'll get along and it'll be just fine. It's just, you will have to kind of figure it out a little bit. Overall, the story is interesting. It's not a lot of likable people, I think. It's a lot of stupid decisions, and you wonder why people are doing and saying the things they're doing. But, you know, that's part of life, right? I mean, I'm certainly not perfect. I've made many poor decisions in my time. But anyway, you will go through a variety of different worlds. The level design is pretty interesting. It's generally pretty good. There are a couple of spots that I found to be a little frustrating where it wasn't obvious to me where I was supposed to go or how I was supposed to get to a particular spot. But, you know, you run around, you persevere, you'll get there. But mainly, I think the world is really pretty and it's really interesting to look at. It's just, it's really, I don't know, honestly, it's pretty delightful for what is realistically a pretty grim game. I mean, there's a little bit of cognitive dissonance when you first jump in the game and you see it and you're like, wow, this world is pretty. Got all these kind of fall colors going on. You got this wolf. And as you start to get into the game, you realize this is a pretty heavy game with a pretty heavy story. Now, granted, as I said before, everything's kind of on rails, so that's where we start to get into some of the rough parts. Theoretically, you have orbs and shrines, altars, I guess, in various places. And yes, you should probably want to go interact with them. And yes, I did miss quite a few of the altars, which relate specifically to Michelle's part of the game. But in a way, there's really no benefit to running outside of the path that you're provided. It's quite head-scratching. I don't understand it. I mean, you'll get little bits and pieces, which is nice to provide a little context to something, but there's no real playing reward for going outside of those areas and trying to find stuff that's off the beaten path, because one, you're inevitably going to run into an invisible wall, and two, most of the time there's just nothing out there. Another rough spot is the voice acting. I think the characters that are in the French portion of the game are probably my favorite voice actors. I like them. It's a little different. They sound good. It's pretty fun. The others, take or leave. You have the main character who sounds like McCree from Overwatch. That's all I can think about when I play is McCree from Overwatch. You have sound balance issues. They didn't normalize his lines as best I can tell. Sometimes he's pretty loud, sometimes he's pretty quiet. There's another character later in the game who, I guess when they were recording, didn't realize that he was peaking on his microphone, so you get lots of distortion. Well, not lots, that's unfair, but you definitely get some distortion when he's speaking, and it sounds bad. Basically what I'm saying is there's a lack of polish in this game. And I don't think that should dissuade you from playing it, but I have to be honest and tell you that the game probably could have used a little more time to just tighten up some of these things. I think there could have been more orbs along the way to better identify the path and to even maybe point out some of the things that are off the beaten path, because it's just sometimes not very clear. And generally, the butterfly things, even though it's kind of cool and interesting, most of the time it feels unnecessary. Like, there are a few times when you get a butterfly that'll let you basically see through rocks so that you can see a path. What's the point of that? Just have the path open and go through it. Like, it feels unnecessary. It doesn't add anything to the game. The jumping ones and the ones where you move faster, yeah, those do, because that's a little platforming element, but just being able to see through a rock where in some of those instances it's blindingly obvious that's where you would go anyway? I don't know. I don't agree with that decision. So overall, for me, this game is a mixed bag. On the one hand, if you can accept the really sometimes awful dialogue and really strange word choices and get past the sometimes really hacky writing, it's an interesting story. And technically it's two stories, and they're both really interesting. And again, I think I like Michelle's story more than David's story, if I'm just going to be honest. But there are some polish issues, and, I didn't even mention it early on, but when you're talking about controlling the game, there's no mouse inversion. So if you're like me and you normally invert your Y-axis on your mouse, have fun, because it's going to take you a while to get used to up going up and down going down instead of the way it properly should be of up going down and down going up. You know what I mean, right? So, some little issues, some things that'll probably bug you, and you might even get stuck once or twice and feel like you just want to scream because you have no idea where to go. I'll be honest, I came really close to quitting at one point, but I didn't. Sorry, one last thing I want to mention. The cutscenes that are not cutscenes in the game, where you have an instance of coming upon a scene and you're seeing something. Maybe there's, you know, a couple people talking, that sort of thing. You'll hear the dialogue no matter where you go on the map, it seems. But oftentimes, two things, I guess. The dialogue and the subtitles don't match, and the visuals that you see will sometimes vanish long before the dialogue has ended. So they'll still keep talking, and you're watching, and you're like, wait a minute, where did everyone go? They just vanished. But they're still talking, and still talking, and still talking. It's really awkward. But again, these are just mostly polish issues. I mean, you can talk about why is the water sometimes so deep that you walk through it, other times it's not. I guess you just have to accept that it's really shallow water in some spots, even though it doesn't look like it. Whatever, little minor things that don't really impact the overall game. It's just, I don't know. It is what it is. It's a mixed bag. You can expect to spend somewhere between 3 and 4 hours playing it. You will get an interesting story. You will probably be annoyed by some of the characters and some of the dialogue and some of the writing. But overall, I don't know. It's interesting. I probably wasn't supposed to laugh at the end, but I did. I think that's where I need to leave it. So, you know, I can't really give you a thumbs up or a thumbs down on this one. It's squarely in the middle with some things going forward and others really not. And I don't know. If you're not sure about it, I suggest finding someone who's playing through it, maybe see a little bit more of it, but do know that watching someone play through the game will completely and utterly spoil it for you, such that you will then not get anything out of playing it yourself, I think, which is a shame because it really does have something to say and it really does have something to offer. It's just, it would be a lot easier to recommend it with a little bit of polish and a little more time spent making sure that everything is just really on point. But, you know, it is what it is. So I'm going to call that good for me for right now. If you want to see more about what I'm doing, click the links below in the description and other places. See what else I have going on the channel. Check out patreon.com/AIC Gaming. And I'll catch you on another one. Until then, thanks for watching. See you later.